Hi, everybody. I'm Kara Nielsen, Director of Food and Drink at WGSN. And it's such a pleasure to join you today to talk about new trends in low and no alcohol drinks, which is perfect for all of you who are attending the FHA Match Drinks Edition. You'll be able to learn a little bit about some of these trends that are growing in the United States, the UK, and globally. So thank you very much for joining. If you have a question during the presentation, please feel free to put that in and we will be addressing those questions at the end. And then you can also reach out to me on the FHA Match platform, where I'll be happy to answer further questions or tell you more about WGSN and our Food and Drink Insights service. So with that, I'm going to start our presentation today and also introduce to you one of our very exciting methodologies at WGSN, which is our Trend Curve methodology, which I'll tell you all about. So thank you very much. It's great to be here, and let's dive in. So WGSN, first of all, WGSN Food and Drink is a trend forecasting service that allows you to create and seize the future. You can develop today the products and services that consumers are going to be looking for tomorrow. And we help you understand what that is and how to take advantage of it. Our service is informing and inspiring new product development. We are one of the top food and drink analysis platforms available. All of our content is written by food and drink experts, and we have a global point of view. Our content includes forecasts that look out 2, 3, 5, and 10 years into the future, but we're also tracking market trends that are happening right now. We have a daily updated feed, and all of our reports and content are focused on helping companies with product development, with buying decisions, category management, as well as marketing insights and positioning. And we really cover the world of trends to help you stay on top of what's important for the future. The WGSN Trend Curve methodology is a unique methodology developed at WGSN using proprietary data sources, machine learning, and then a little bit of human analytics as well. We put these together, we explore one trend and put it together using data visualization techniques to really help readers understand and grasp immediately how trends are growing and how they can be leveraged for new product development. Some of our food and drink trend curve reports you can see here, they're all geared to reveal opportunities that you can leverage to grow your business. And that can be looking at new signs of things that are coming from the very innovative edge of the marketplace to what's growing and starting to appear in more trend forward places. And still we're trying to show where a trend is growing, what are different characteristics of that trend, and how a trend might be able to fit into your brand or your business. You can see here we cover trend topics from the health and wellness space like adaptogens or gut health, as well as baking, cuisine, flavor. We're also looking at ingredients like pumpkin seeds, and we even had a great report on fried chicken. So a little something for everybody. We analyze growing trends across 4 stages of trend adoption. And this is something that our clients really grasp and understand and value. We look at how a trend looks when it first is born, and then how it starts growing, emerging, advancing, expanding. And you can see we outline the stages from innovator to early adopter, early majority, and mainstreamer. So for example, a trend that is appearing in the innovator space is coming from chefs, independent restaurants, bartenders, artisan food makers, recipe creators, those types of folks who aren't necessarily selling or packaging anything yet. But as a trend grows, it starts appearing as perhaps an indie brand or a trend forward retailer has a limited time offer in a certain flavor. And that's a sign that that trend has some legs and is growing and is starting to appeal to more and more consumers. And as that trend grows, we start seeing how it's being adapted and presented in the marketplace. What are the benefits and qualities that are being called out? What are some of the images and logos? How is it taking shape? And this is what we track, which allows clients to look and understand where they can find new inspiration for their brands or their companies. We use several different data sources, including our WGSN Food and Drink Influencer Map, which is a map of over 3,000 influencers on social media across the spectrum from innovator all the way to mainstreamer. And we use their social media posts and mine it for information to see what their conversation is like, what they're talking about, and what's the context for that conversation, even more important. And then we pair that social media data with other data, which I'll talk about in a moment. So just to give you an example, here are 4 stages of the low and no alcohol drinks trend. On the innovator side, we're seeing mocktail recipes with a twist, lots of flavor variety, and some indie brands starting to launch new botanical beverages, either with low or no alcohol, as kind of a competition for spirits. The early adopter brands are putting out canned mocktails, and we see sort of smaller independent craft beer breweries starting to launch their own zero-proof beers. As this trend is getting a little higher, we see that early majority brands are talking about dry January, which is the time every year where many people make a pledge to give up alcohol for the month. We also see more low alcohol canned beverages. And then finally, in the mainstreamer side, we see a whole plethora of zero-proof beer and even some gins from some of the biggest brands, as well as coming from the United States, low alcohol hard seltzers, and all kinds of juices and different mixers that are being positioned as ingredients for creative mocktails you can make at home. The data sources that we use in our proprietary trend curve methodology include the social media data, and we work with one of our parent companies, sister companies, Yimian by Essential, and you can see an example of here of how we use this data. We looked, for example, at a number of hashtags around the low and no alcohol conversation, and then we looked at what different influencers at different stages of the trend curve were talking about. So for example, if we looked across all of the conversations, and this is where the machine learning comes in, you can see that popular cocktails that are being discussed include mojitos, margaritas, and martinis, which makes a lot of sense because clearly these are some of the most popular cocktails that people like and are drinking at home. You can see from the bar chart here that the innovators, so it's the most forward-leaning influencers, you can see the percentage of that conversation that's made up of innovators, but you'll also see that the early adopters, early majority, and the mainstreamers are also still talking about mojitos. So that gives you a sense of that's either a very popular mocktail to jump on, or maybe it's already too mature and you want to find something else, or it certainly gives you an idea of some of the flavor profiles that are appearing in drinks that people are writing about, producing, and talking about online. On the right, you can see a chart here from another sister company of Essential, the parent company of WGSN, from Edge by Essential. And Edge tracks online retail data. And you can see here in this chart, which we'll talk about a little bit later, how we're looking at how the categories are shaping up in the low and no alcohol space between the US and the UK. And you can see here how we are looking at beers versus ready to drinks versus spirits and wine to see which one is growing, how fast, and across a certain time span. This is actually where the trend curve gets its name. This is a chart that is looking at the social media conversation charted across several years and then divided by those 4 stages, as I mentioned. And so you can see here how there are some of the peaks, for example, at the beginning of each year, you can see a little peak. That's the dry January conversation. If you look in the middle of 2020, you see a peak that was created by a UK scheme to eat out, to help out, where restaurants were advertising the meals that they were offering at a discounted price, and many of them included an either alcoholic or non-alcoholic drink. And you can see how that triggered the conversation to bubble up. And then finally, in 2021 in January, you see a very big peak around dry January, which was a really huge topic this year. We have a metric that measures the buzz of a hashtag. And this buzz around low and no alcohol had increased 134% over the last year's buzz. And the buzz looks at the followers of the person with the posts, as well as the likes and the sharing. And we put that together into a formula that then can show like how much traction and how much idea was amplified across social media. So let's dive in and take a look at some of the trends in low and no alcohol drinks, and get a little more up close on this topic. So you can see here on the left is a chart that summarizes all of the different data points that we looked at from both the social media as well as our online retail data. And you can see that right now, if you look at like all the beer and wine and alcoholic drinks category, the low and no alcohol ones are actually taking up just a sliver, about 4%, but they are growing year on year. And we see continued growth at 9% in the UK, 29% in the US of category volume growth. There are estimates that this 4% of the total of the drinks market will soon become, 31, we'll start seeing 31% growth as we go forward over the next few years. We're also seeing what's dominating, what is sort of the most popular style of low and no alcohol drink in different regions. And some of that is very much attached to food culture and what people would drink normally from an alcoholic standpoint, and what are some of the newer stand-ins. So in the UK, that's botanical spirits that are similar to gin. And in the US, it's hard seltzers, which have become this sort of low calorie, very easy to drink alternative to low calorie or low alcohol beers, or sort of a spin on flavored seltzer water that is just water, but now has a little bit of oomph into it. We also see from a social media standpoint, if we look at all the conversations of all of our influencers, 4% of them are talking about low and no alcohol, which may seem small, but it's actually significant. And we can also break this down and look at, which type of influencer is talking about this and how it's growing. We also saw that one of the biggest topics of social media was dry January. So this could be something that might have some traction and really take off in the Asia Pacific area if it hasn't already. Some of the drivers behind low and no alcohol drinking include consumers seeking moderation and sobriety, especially during and after the COVID-19 pandemic. Immunity is very important, and a lot of people think that they feel better and their immune system is stronger with less alcohol. Less alcohol also helps people with balancing their mental health. They feel better. They wake up with a clearer head. It's just an overall kind of mindful element that many more people are choosing to follow. We also see an interest in variety across this low and no alcohol spectrum. Some people actually start drinking alcohol and then they taper off and turn to no alcohol drinks to kind of keep participating in the social occasion, but limit the amount of alcohol that they're consuming overall. And then curiosity is also something that's happening. These are new, exciting drinks. Many bars and restaurants are putting interesting low alcohol or non-alcohol drinks on their menu. And there's something that are really fun and attractive for people to try. So as more and more restaurants and bars open, we expect to see more interesting drinks that are attracting people just looking for something new and different to enjoy. So here's our chart again, looking at the category split of which categories are growing in the low and no alcohol space. And what we really see is there is a great variety, and some varieties are giving up share as other varieties get a little bigger. So we see that the low alcohol wine is still pretty minimal and kind of losing share to more of the ready-to-drink cocktails in the United States. And in the UK, we see that beers, lagers, and ciders are growing, whereas the ready-to-drinks are still small. So this also shows where is there some opportunity to perhaps get into a place that's not oversaturated with a new product. You can see here that the volume is growing year on year. We cited a 2021 study that pointed out that 64% of low and no alcohol drinking happened at home, at least in the last year or so. Obviously, people were stuck at home, so it makes a lot of sense. But many of them would start with a full alcohol drink and then turn to a no alcohol drink to balance out their evening. 14% abstained from alcohol altogether, so they're not doing that mix and matching. But it is interesting to think that these drinks are not necessarily only for people who don't drink any alcohol. We see the zero proof beers and botanicals growing in the UK and those seltzers I mentioned for the US. But in Asia and Australia, we're also seeing new beers, botanical spirits, a cocktail bar in Melbourne that's 100% zero alcohol, and even wine, sangria, and aperitifs. And here's an example of what some of these products look like. These are all new products and new experiences that have launched over the last few months in the Asia Pacific. We see a zero proof aperitif in Hong Kong. In Japan, Kirin partnered with Mercian to create a 0% sangria. Australia, James Squire came out with a 0% beer recently. And then Brunswick Aces is the name of the non-alcoholic bar where you can go and try all kinds of things in a bar setting that all are no alcohol. And as I said, this really is a global trend, and it looks a little different in different parts of the globe, but we expect to see the proliferation to continue and to also have more and more types and styles of beverages available. And we're seeing different kinds of companies jumping in on this. So for example, in India, a tonic maker, so a company that was making just tonics, decided to create a set of zero proof drinks that are gin and tonic, a pink gin and tonic, and a rum and cola. So here's a way for this company, a soft drink company, to expand its portfolio. In France, a regular beer company also started a zero proof line and is making IPAs, lagers, and a few different styles. And this is Frog Beer Incroyable. In Japan, Ashibiri is a new zero alcohol beer. And it just came out this summer. It has a tiny bit of alcohol, but you can certainly see the packaging, the quality, the interest is definitely has a little premium side. So there's very few compromises right now in enjoying low and no alcohol beverages. And from New Zealand comes a de-alcoholized wine. This came from a winery where the winery staff decided to follow a health program to lose weight and exercise more. And they realized that their own alcohol products were part of what was causing some of their health issues. And so they put their heads together and created a zero alcohol wine that can be enjoyed when people are looking to focus more on health and moderation. So now we're going to take a quick close-up into the 4 stages of our trend map to get a little better idea of what's happening in each stage. So again, those innovators, these are the mixologists, the people who are creating recipes and sharing them, recipe creators who are sharing recipes of their own creation with their followers. So what we're really seeing is tea, kombucha, different kinds of cordials, drink syrups, fruit juices are all being used in mocktail recipes. And so you could see why we had that chart earlier of like, well, what was the style? Well, mojitos, margaritas, but also just really creative, very flavorful drinks that are also quite colorful and by the season. We noticed that pineapple ingredient mentions were increased 50% for our users from 2019 to 2020, mostly involved in pina colada drinks, but also in a lot of different drinks. And pineapple is actually a trending fruit flavor across the board in beverages. Dry January is also something we saw a lot of in social media. It was embraced by influencers and also new brands that were inviting people to try their products during their time of pledging to reduce alcohol in January. Some standout brands we can see in the innovator side. These are very small brands that started mostly in the UK that are either zero or low alcohol and are using different ingredients to replicate the feeling of a true distilled spirit. So for example, Everleaf Drinks, for its marine flavor, it actually is using dulse seaweed and acacia to give that drink some body that is lost when you remove the alcohol, which I thought was a really key product development idea. Mary has a number of low alcohol botanic blends that are really looking to kind of compete with gin. And you can see these bottles. These are very classy looking products, you know, again, very nice looking. I will say many of them do have a bit of a premium price tag. And so they are sort of sitting in the specialty side, but people are very grateful to have so many great choices. Binary is a table beer that's designed to replace wine. And you can see it's in a larger bottle and is something that was geared to really work with a meal. And it was created by a group of female brewers, beer brewers, who wanted to apply their talents in new ways. You can also see here some of the flavors that we measured. So this is another way where you can see how we're using data. We looked at our social influencer map and used that machine learning tool. And I'm really glad it wasn't me who had to read through all of these posts, but you can see what flavors were mentioned in the context of the conversations around low and no alcohol drinks. So not surprisingly, over the last year, and this is across the 4 stages of our influencer map, you can see very typical cocktail flavor profiles: lemon, lime, ginger, mint. And then here we start seeing some of our tropicals: pineapple and coconut, very common in pina coladas; grapefruit, sort of a rising flavor. It's very popular in hard seltzers in the United States, and is also that kind of puckery sour that more and more people are interested in. But then we start seeing more sort of floral flavors and fruity flavors like strawberry, basil, honey, peach. It really starts getting very interesting. And we consider this a potential roadmap for product development that shows you, first of all, what's kind of growing, where might there be some interest. Things like jasmine or lychee or even guava are also something we're starting to see more and more of. Hibiscus and blood orange. You can also kind of tell how colors are so important for the attractiveness of a low or no alcohol beverage. Pomegranate, raspberry, watermelon, mango. Is your mouth watering yet? Because mine is, just thinking about this. But this shows kind of the excitement and the variety that's happening as part of this conversation that, to me, really gives product developers license to dive in and really get creative with some of these drinks. So moving on to our early adopter, you can see that we have a rise of ready-to-drink brands that have grown quite a bit in online retail over the last year. An 86% increase in the UK, 61% in the US, which is actually was a more mature market, but it shows that the UK is catching up, and some of those ready-to-drink canned cocktails, wines, and even kind of that hard seltzery type thing is growing there in the UK, and expect some of that to trickle out in other regions around the world. One of the things we really noticed is that the craft beer brewers were catching up with the mainstream brewers and introducing their own styles of zero proof beers. And you can see on the bottom right-hand side some of the varieties that include IPAs, lagers, even sour ales are coming out in a zero proof way. And then we also saw a lot of mocktail recipes and ready-to-drink cocktails that are really fitting into different types of lifestyles and even flavor profiles. We have Calino drinks here from the UK, which was founded by a Colombian woman who's living in London. You can see in the bottom center, her drink now comes in a can, and it's a ready-to-drink zero alcohol cocktail that she now is promoting with a Colombian restaurant in London and sort of pairing the food with her drinks. We'll also see websites. Yumly is a newish website in the United States that shares a lot of different recipes, and they were encouraging people how easy it was to make homemade mojitos with watermelon at home. In the early majority side, we're now getting into brands that are perhaps natural brands, brands that aren't quite mainstream, maybe a little more gourmet or premium, retailers in that same segment that are talking about and promoting some of these things. So the early majority space is the one that's kind of just before completely mainstream. And there's often different benefits that are turning up in here, different flavor profiles, sort of a gourmet benefit. And some of the things that we're seeing happen here is, again, using dry January as a promotional moment, a time of year where they're really going to take advantage of it and put something online or on Instagram or social media and really underscore how their products or brands, or as a retailer, what they're selling, that is going to meet your need in dry January. So we see different mixers and beverages and brands that are really also kind of coming forth and showing off what they have. So for example, I think these Bacardi's Martini brand launched 2 non-alcoholic aperitif wines last year in March 2020. One was fruity and one was a little more floral, and definitely fits into the style of the aperitif trend that we're seeing. We also saw some of the kind of leading and really mainstream craft brewers in the United States. Lagunitas came out with an IPNA, so a no alcohol IP. IPA, which it promoted for Dry January, and also pointed out, hey, you could drink this for breakfast or a weekday afternoon, or even use it after you've enjoyed our higher regular alcohol IPAs as a balance. And I think, again, these are all messages that give brands ideas on how you could position something and some of those kind of hidden benefits of these low alcohol drinks. You can drink them any time of the day. You can, enjoy them after a workout. You can also sell them in more kinds of stores because you don't have to have a liquor license to do so. We saw a mainstream grocery store in the United States, or actually kind of a gourmet grocery store called Wegmans, that featured a cranberry peach kombucha in a mocktail spritzer recipe. And so here we have this sort of bubbly kombucha, more seen as a health food drink, being paired with Wegmans' own pomegranate arils to create a really attractive spritzer beverage. So this sort of shows you how companies are finding ways to jump on this bandwagon. Finally, our mainstreamer section. This is where we really see some of the biggest alcohol companies are really showing off what they've done. We've seen a lot of the big companies already have beers. Gordon's, for example, came out with a zero-proof gin. Here you can see on the bottom White Claw, which is the biggest brand of hard seltzer in the United States, but also companies like Tazo Tea, which is promoting a tea mixer that was developed with mixology in mind in berry hibiscus margarita or ginger lime Moscow Mule. So again, how can a tea brand get in on this? Make it easy for consumers to use your product as a ready-to-mix mixer, which I thought was a great idea. But you can even see that some of this penetration in social media is growing. So there is definitely mainstream element to this, even if it's still small numbers. So do look across the trend map for inspiration. So now we're going to close. And again, reminder, if you have any questions, you can please put them in. We'll be happy to answer them after this presentation. But some 4 things to think about. First of all, create something for everyone. As you've seen here, we see low and no alcohol products that are aperitifs or vermouths or beer alternatives, cocktail alternatives, or spirit alternatives. Think about how people look to replace their favorite and make sure there's a choice for them, whether it's in your product portfolio, your retail shelf, or on a hospitality restaurant bar menu. Find the right fit and occasion. Is this a brunch cocktail mocktail, or is this something, for a group? What's going to be the right fit for the right occasion? As we're coming into holiday season, what's going to fit with different feasts? What's going to be the appropriate gift? Think about that occasion. Think about how you can also have a low and no alcohol option as part of that. Satisfy with good taste and flavor. What we're going to see here is that it really counts what things taste like. So really keep things flavor forward, communicate what those flavors are, and then be sure to show off any bright colors, make people get really excited about how delicious this might taste so they don't feel like they're compromising. And then finally, number 4, underscore the health and wellness elements here. Many consumers are really looking for more support, more ways to do better, to add some moderation. But if there's no compromise in taste and flavor, if there's something for every occasion, then it helps people sort of stick to their health goals and feel like, they can really enjoy the moment without compromising. I'm now closing the presentation here. So again, please put in those questions. We'll be happy to answer them. You can also reach out to me on the FHA Drinks platform, Match Drinks platform. And we're really excited again to share this with you and hope it's really opened your eyes to this exciting low and no alcohol trend. Thanks for joining us and enjoy the rest of the exhibition.